Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a seriously fascinating chapter of human ingenuity, the ancient and really creative practice of making a mark. We're going to trace the journey of seals, those heavy authoritative stamps used by ancient kingdoms, all the way to the gorgeous, intricate textile traditions that are still alive today. We'll even look at how you can try it out yourself. To kick things off, I want you to consider this. What on earth do an ancient kingdom and your local modern post office actually have in common? It kind of seems like a crazy comparison, right? One makes you think of ruined cities and ancient artifacts buried in the sand, and the other, well, a clerk stamping a package. But as we're gonna see, they're actually linked by one single, incredibly powerful piece of technology. Okay, let's dive right into this. On the left, we've got this magnificent ancient Harappan seal. Notice the carved animal figure and that mysterious script. Now, on the right, something you've probably seen a million times, a standard modern rubber stamp. Even though they're separated by literally thousands of years, their core job is exactly the same. They're both tools designed to leave a deliberate, repeatable mark that screams, "This is official." Here is our quick roadmap for today's Explainer. First, the power of seals. Then, the mechanics of an impression. After that, designing your personal mark, followed by crafting and testing seals. And we'll wrap it all up with the art of block printing. Section 1. The power of seals, symbols of authority and identity. So what actually is a seal? Well, the formal definition is that it's a tool with a raised or incised emblem used to stamp an impression. But historically, it was way more than just a pretty picture. Pressing a seal into clay or wax was a binding legal act. It proved exactly who sent a message and legitimized entire institutions. Honestly, you can think of it as the ancient world's version of a secure, verified digital signature. You can see this dynamic perfectly in action right here. The hard stamp on the right forces the soft red wax on the left to completely conform to its design. Just think about the physical act happening in that moment. Authority is literally being pressed into existence. Once that wax cools and hardens, the document is officially sealed by the weight of whoever owns that emblem. When we actually sit down and study these artifacts, we realize they are totally packed with information. Seals usually combine symbols and pictures with specific text or specialized scripts. Put together, these act as instant markers of authority. They immediately tell the person receiving it whether the message came from a king, a specific government branch, or a powerful trade group. Literally every single carved line has a specific purpose. And this isn't just dusty ancient history. Just look at the NCRT logo. It functions exactly like a modern, everyday institutional seal. It uses a specific symbol, those 3 intertwined swans, along with text, to instantly communicate its identity. When you spot this on a textbook, you immediately recognize it's legit, exactly like an ancient citizen recognizing a king's royal stamp. Moving on to Section 2, Mechanics of an Impression, Making Your Mark. So the crucial point here is understanding exactly how raised surfaces interact with different materials. Take a look at this really simple coin rubbing. When you take a pencil and rub it over paper that's sitting on top of a coin, the graphite only catches on the raised details. The lower, carved-out areas stay totally white. This perfectly demonstrates the fundamental science of all printing, manipulating negative and positive space to transfer a design. Which brings us to Section 3, Designing Your Personal Mark, the DIY transition. To really truly understand how seals work, you kind of just have to make one yourself. The source chapter actually outlines a super simple experiment you can do right at home. First, grab some damp clay or just regular dough. Then, gather up everyday things with interesting textures. Buttons, bottle caps, maybe some small twigs, and press them firmly into the dough. Pull them away and check out the results. Did the hard plastic or the woven button leave a crisper mark? This messy, hands-on testing is exactly how ancient craftspeople learned their trade. Section 4. Crafting and testing seals, from cardboard to canvas. Now we're going to look at the cardboard relief method. This is a brilliant, really accessible way to make a fully functional stamp. Instead of painfully carving away a hard material like a stone cutter would, you're doing the exact opposite. You're building up a raised, layered design on a flat surface. By gluing pieces of cardboard onto a base, those raised parts become the contact points that'll catch your ink, while the background stays perfectly clean.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the raw, tactile nature of the tool itself. You can clearly see the layers of corrugated cardboard that were cut and glued together to make this rose and its leaves. Look really closely at how the artist thought about the spacing between the petals. Those gaps are absolutely crucial. If the pieces were too close together, the paint would just bridge the gap, and you'd end up with a solid, messy blob instead of a crisp, clear picture.
And here it is, the moment of truth. The very first test print on paper using red paint. This testing phase is absolutely vital. Looking at this first impression, you can see exactly where the paint caught perfectly and maybe spot a few areas where the cardboard didn't press down completely evenly. This is the moment the artisan decides if the seal needs a tiny bit more glue, a quick trim, or maybe just different pressure before they risk putting it on the final canvas.
Once it's tested and refined, you get this deeply satisfying result. Here's the modified DIY cardboard stamp successfully applied directly onto white fabric. It's pretty amazing. We've gone from a flat, boring piece of recycled cardboard to a fully functional artistic tool that can transfer a beautiful symbol over and over again. Section 5. The Art of Block Printing, Scaling Up the Craft. Up until now, we've really just been looking at the single stamp impression. Whether it's an ancient king sealing a single letter or a DIY cardboard rose test, the goal was just one-off mark. But continuous block printing? That is a whole different ballgame. Here, a block is used repeatedly. It takes intense concentration and incredibly precise alignment to create seamless, flowing patterns across huge lengths of fabric. Let's move to this slide and see how this builds in practice. Just look at the intense focus of the artisan here. They aren't just stamping randomly, they are carefully applying those golden leaf shapes onto the fabric, visually lining up every single new impression with the last one. It takes an incredibly steady hand and a deep understanding of how the edges of that block fit into the overall geometry of the piece. It's this mesmerizing mix of rhythm and perfect precision. The source material highlights a breathtaking example of this, called a drach. This is a highly specialized, historically rich hand block printing tradition practiced predominantly in Kutch, Gujarat. And guys, this isn't just stamping. It's a deeply cultural craft that gets passed down through generations. It involves complex natural dyes, multiple hand-carved wooden blocks, and a total mastery of continuous interlocking patterns that are famous all around the world. And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate artistic potential of combining marks. Look at how the artisan has layered different handmade impressions, those intricate green leaves acting as a backdrop for the highly textured red fruits on the dark paper. By mastering those really simple mechanics of positive and negative space we talked about earlier, you can build up incredibly rich, vibrant scenes like this. We've traveled all the way from the clay seals of ancient kingdoms to the dynamic textile workshops of Gujarat, all just by understanding the simple power of making a mark. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought to spark your own creativity. Based on everything we've explored today, if you were to design a continuous pattern, what would your personal symbol be? Thanks so much for joining me, and I highly encourage you to go grab some cardboard and paint and find out for yourself.